I'm Glenn. You're back at the lab. You might have watched the videos doing this fuel tank on the March here. Basically finished with the actual tank itself. More or less a couple of little things to do. Not a heck of a lot of information to be conveyed there. So we're going to move on to the actual fuel system itself. And I'm going to shift a few things around. Something new to this box is our Link ECU's ethanol sensor. Now this has been living in the engine bay, which is fine. There's no problem with that. So is the fuel pressure regulator and the fuel pressure sensor that's on there. There's actually no reason why the ethanol sensor, ethanol content sensor, whatever we want to call it, let's put that on that carefully made workbench there. There's no reason why that would need to be in the engine bay. It's just kind of where you put that sort of thing. And in this case, this particular vehicle, we have an engine bay and we've got a fuel bay. So that's where that lived there, like that. So there's all sorts of, that'll be fine, but there's actually all sorts of wrong with that for this particular car. We want to try and move weight forward, and we want to try and move it over to this side of the car, because we've got my big fat bum sitting in the driver's seat. I'm like 100 kgs. The car is pretty much balanced without the driver in it. So you put me in it, it's heavy on the driver's side, so you want weight on passenger side. I should have put fuel pressure regulator on the passenger side, and on that's actually a firewall for the harness, where it goes around the harness bar, so that if we have a fire in the engine bay here, you don't incinerate your harness. I see a lot of cars where there's seals around the harness in the firewall, and the harness is actually exposed in the engine bay. It's just all sorts of wrong, in my opinion. You have pretty big fire burning in here before you notice it. It'll take a couple of seconds to significantly deteriorate the performance of your safety critical device. And then if you have an accident after your fire, which can happen, bad. Anyway, so what I'm thinking, I digress massively. What I'm thinking is we put the ethanol content sensor in the front of the car, because it's probably safer there anyway. Better to be away from the heat and everything that's in the engine bay. Chuck it in the front there on the actual original firewall. And I'll move not that it weighs a lot, but I'll move the fuel pressure regulator potentially to this side of the car, and maybe down there somewhere, though it is kind of closer to hot things. Maybe over here. Thinking that. Possibly get lazy, leave the fuel pressure regulator there and just move the ethanol content sensor, because that one's pretty easy to shift. In the front here, this is our fuel return hose. This is the one, everything's all moving it. That's not bolted in, it's just sitting there. I'll tell you what. There. And I'll put that away properly in a second. Now I'm not going to bump it and damage something somehow. Here's our fuel return hose. Remember I talked in the previous video, it'd be nice with a 90-degree fitting on that hose and a firewall thing and all that to get the feng shui nice. What about, how much room is there? There's enough room. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? If we do a nice bracket, scratching a brand new cheap fake carbon fibre there. If I do a nice bracket, there's a strong possibility that this unit can live back there, and we can have our 90-degree hose fitting on the top on here. Get the feng shui nice and good, except it's on the driver's side of the car, and ideally it'd be on the passenger side, but that's fine. We can live with that. I'm going to do that. I don't know how that bracket survived here for 4 years. It doesn't need to be there. That's not terrible, eh? 1, 2, 3 all lined up there. 3 little piggies. Not going to be the easiest to get a fitting off the bottom of that because where the chassis rail is, but a 45 will be fine. It'll bring it out away from those things. We're going to do something with this clutch one there, my little one-way valve that I made up, my check valve, slow return valve thing. Find somewhere nice to put that. 10 different ideas just ran through my head. Looking good though, that's better. Alright, after ferreting around in the engine bay for a little bit, using all the bits of hoses and fittings and whatnot to figure out where this would go, the best place for it to go is pretty much where I had it. Taking everything into account, in my opinion, it was pretty good where it was. If we put it on the passenger side, we've got to run along a return hose, and it starts getting awkward trying to get it past gearboxes and drive shaft and gearbox linkages and all that sort of carry on. So, determined to shift the damn thing anyway, I've made a slightly shorter, lower profile bracket, which is lighter, lowers the breakage load a tiny little bit, more importantly, puts less leverage on the two mounting points on the relatively thin firewall. This is, by the time you stick that on the bottom of that, got quite a large weight. I haven't weighed that, but they're not light, with quite a lot of leverage compared to that. So that'll do. We're going to smash that in there. I did consider trying to arrange it like that somehow, but it actually gets just a bit too hard because of the way this is shaped at the back. Now I'm talking myself into it. I might make a longer bracket. It does that. Actually, that is going to fit, isn't it? Because I put the radius basically exactly where the screws are, or very, very close to it. You can see it's distorted, the screws, but they're only cap bolts, so they'll still tighten up on the flat bit. Yeah, let's do that, eh guys? Then it'll be much more sturdy. It'll have a good amount of weight either side of where the screws are. Lower it a bit lower. Yeah, okay. This is really what these flares are all about, is workbench, because I can constantly change things. So I was thinking it through even further and looking at where that bracket actually mounts onto the car. We don't need to make a new bracket. We've got one that is perfect already. You'll have to excuse me trying to do this one-handed, but I want to show you the genius solution to what we were just talking about. We'll put that in there. We're not going to do the whole thing 100% right now while I'm doing it one-handed, because it's not the easiest thing in the world to make sure the camera is pointing in the right spot. Those will be on there like that. Now, I said we're not going to do it. We might do it. I started a new channel, the One-Handed Mechanic. Actually, I shouldn't say that. There probably is one. And good on them. Good on them, not taking the mickey out of them at all. Anybody who's missing a hand, you can actually still get a lot done if you're determined. Do you notice something, guys? I can still get these two screws in here. We can put this here. Is that sitting right? Yeah, it is. We can put that there and still get these two screws from the back there. Problem solved. Awesomeness. Good mount. Brilliant. The other thing is the previous install, I think it's overloaded those rib nuts a little bit, and our bracket's a little bit skew-if, so I have to give that a bit of a gentle tug in the right direction. We've got to do some better tape and stuff. These boxes might actually evolve from where they are anyway. They might change to something more betterer. Right, let's bolt that up. Almost looks like it's hovering. UFO. There's got to be a better place for that sensor, I reckon. Just kind of hang out in the breeze there. And the other thing is, that's on the wrong side I think I've taken this off and looked at it before, and there's some reason why you can't just flick that around the other way, but I'm going to look at that again and see what I come up with. That also needs to be black, but that's a bit hard to deal with. Okay, let's make up some hoses for that thing sitting there. Okay, good news, boring news, and more news, other news. Oh yeah, that's gone. That's gone. See, we haven't got the scales, but 10 grams, 5 grams. Oh, as it's gone. We have fuel hoses, front to rear of car, the whole lot, whole shooting match. No clamps or anything on them yet, but they're certainly the right lengths to go from the splashy burny stuff to the noisy thing, and back into the splashy burny stuff. The fittings that I was talking about, the pipe fittings, tube fittings are called, that works, so that's good. If you don't know how these things work, here I go again with one-handed stuff and things. There's absolutely no way I can do this whole thing for you with one hand. Oh, it's even hard just undoing it. Never mind. Here we go. Got the technique sussed. Little olive inside there. Okay, and a thread. Let's get this a bit closer so you can see. Oh, it's not going to focus. There we go. It's got a thread. And it's got a taper inside there, very slight taper. The olive sits in there. So hard to do. Never mind. There we go. I'm doing this through the screen too. I'm not looking at it and holding the phone. I'm watching it through the screen, so it's delayed, so it's hard. And then you do that one up, and it crushes that olive inwards because of the taper on the outside of it. So when you slip it over the top of your fuel pump, your tube, it's actually a relatively loose fit on that one, but it fits over the top of it. And then when you crush it in, grabs hold of that, won't leak, won't fall off. Awesomeness. I'll put that lot there onto that one there, and then we'll open this thing here, take the fuel panel out, make up some hoses. That one's probably actually just about the right length. I replaced one of the hoses. The fuel return hose was actually in 2 sections. It's not anymore, so that's given us more straight hose ends, so we don't need any more of those. We've got enough to do the whole job nice and proper and good. Okay, that is a slight variation on what I was actually going to do with the fuel pumps, but it'll work just fine. It looks like a bigger distance than what it is when you have the pump sitting over here and you're like, yeah, it'll be fine, we'll be able to get a hose and curve it through one of these holes or around the back and to the fitting. And then when you figure out it's only 85 millimeters of height and this hose is quite stiff, doesn't like going around really sharp corners, that turns out to be not actually that achievable. However, I can mount the pumps front to back rather than side to side, and it still fits in the sump just fine. So if I put, why don't we just viciously throw that into the car single-handedly. That fits. Terrible camera work again today, Glenn. If I put that on there, doesn't matter if it's loose. It's not even on at all, is it? There we go. That's on. And I'll put that on there. That'll do. Right, that'll do. Stuff. The whole plumbing system for the fuel system is there. It's all there. The whole circuit. It's not mounted and none of it's tight, but it's all there. The circuit is there. I need to make some brackets up to hold our brackets to hold the fuel hoses. Need to do that. Not going to worry about these 3. They'll be, what's the thing? That's not going anywhere. Yeah, so I don't have to worry about those now. We need a few under the car, in between here and there. And it's holding its time now, so that's weird. I flicked it, lost an hour in the afternoons, but it was okay in the morning, so I clocked it forward in the morning so it was accurate, and now it's accurate in the afternoons. I don't know what's happening there. It is a liar, but right now it's not, so that's cool. Right, well, that's enough for today, I think. Anything else that I want to achieve today is going to be in more than a couple of hours, and I'm not staying out here that long. So, cheers for watching. Thanks, bye.